council meeting to order Tuesday, April 7th at 12 noon. Would everybody please join me and stand and say in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, no matter where you're at.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
I couldn't quite understand some of you.
Oh my gosh, I bet that was interesting.
The crowd was all right.
I'm guessing they're not going to put us on Clemmel with this now.
Are you on now? Okay, I just want to share with everyone that we've got a lot to talk about this morning. And as Mayor of Le Mars, Iowa, your Mayor of Le Mars, Iowa, I'm going to do the best I can do to conduct this meeting as on a business-like basis that we need to do. First of all, it's been brought to my attention last year, our disaster plan. Apparently some people during the flood didn't know we had a disaster plan. But we cleared that up last year because we've had a disaster plan for as long as I've known, which is the last 10 or 12 years. And the reason I bring that up is because we're in a disaster plan program right now. And I want to share with you, communication to residents has been very important as far as our city is concerned. And I just want to share with you some things that have taken place and where we're at in the disaster plan. On March 13th, President Trump put out a proclamation about an outbreak of the virus. And on March 15th, Governor Reynolds put out a proclamation for the state of Iowa on the 15th of March. At 10 o'clock on March 16th, the next morning, we call a disaster plan. And I share this with everyone because some of these things is a way to communicate, I think, to keep people informed and let them know where they're at. When we called this meeting on the 16th of March, excuse me, at 10 a.m., it was called by our administrative people, Jason Becerra and our administrative people, our first responders, and our supervisors of every department was in there. And some of the things we talked about right off the bat when we found out about the proclamation was, we asked them the first thing to do is to go home or back to their places and check their inventories to make sure that we had enough on hand for coming down the road, which they did. The other thing that came out in that proclamation was to continue to practice being 6 feet apart. And the other one was to come out of that meeting, or one of the topics was don't get involved with people over 10 people in a group. And to show you how times changed, that was a 10 o'clock meeting. And when that first came out, the figure was 50 people. By 6 o'clock that night, it went down to 10. So things were moving pretty fast. The other area that has been very, very important is the stay-at-home place, or stay-at-home shelter and stay-at-home. I just want to stop right there a minute because the update on that, I just want to share this with you from what I know anyway, that I think there was 8 states, but Governor Reynolds, Nebraska was one of them, Governor Pete Ricketts, of the 2 I know of anyway, has not really put in what they call stay in place or the same as locked up at home, like other states have. And I want to share with you that one of the reasons they've had it, the thing I really respect is the president has turned a lot of these over, a lot of this stuff over to the states themselves. And Governor Kim Reynolds has been criticized because she did not fully put in place the stay-at-home policy. And I just want to share that with you because that cleared up last night. I happened to be watching Fox News. And prior to that, her and Pete Ricketts, Governor Ricketts, was getting a tremendous amount of criticism from doctors and places like that on the East Coast of why they wouldn't do it. And so Dr. Frucci, which is the head doctor out in the East Coast, that you see on television each night, personally called Governor Kim Reynolds and Governor Pete Ricketts yesterday. And what he found out is that after visiting with him, and he publicized this last night, that the flows, the charts that are coming in, it's a lot different that's going on here in Mars, Iowa, or the Midwest than it is in the people in New York, or a great group of people, or a lot of people congregated together. And so he come right out and said that what they're doing in the Midwest, as far as the 6 feet and the 10 people that they have in place, is what are far ahead and beyond and far ahead of what the people in New York are trying to do. So that took a lot of heat off of Governor Reynolds and also Governor Pete Ricketts. I just share that with you because I want you to know that the things they're trying to do here in the Midwest as far as locking up people or staying at home or encouraging them, they're doing their job. And it seems to be working out here. The city also announced, going back to communication, the city also announced on March 17th, the day after the meeting we had, that all city facilities would be closed. And anything that any of the facilities that city owned would be closed, and that included the bathrooms and anything that the city owned. Let me share what possessed that. There's 3 areas that we have followed since the meeting on March 16th. And the first one is the State of Iowa Proclamation, of which is a very good one if you have an opportunity to look at it, because it answers a lot of questions of what's being closed here in the Mars and what can be closed and things like that. And I've got that here, and I'm assuming we're going to have some questions coming in a little bit later on from residents. But if you'll go to the governor's website, and that's governor.iowa.gov on your computers, and go to their website, it will give you a copy of the proclamation by Governor Reynolds, and there's a lot of information on there as what she has described being closed and what's legal. So I encourage you to do that. We also, this morning, put this up on the Morris website, so it's very easy to go to. And I just point that out because that's a good way to bring you up to date as to what's going on, because there is changes made. The second thing that we have followed verbatim since that proclamation came out is following the Homeland Security. And the third one was the Department of Health and Human Services. And by going to the proclamation, with those three things, it will give you an opportunity or a way to communicate if there's changes made or anything like that. For example, yesterday, one came out that we've got to close our campsites. And let me share with you where we're at on that one right now. Ours doesn't open until May 1st. So we're hoping that we'll have further direction on May 1st before that opens. I just want to share also that, you know, the good Lord has a lot of different ways of working. And it wasn't a month ago that everybody was living in a golden dream as far as our city, our country, and our states were living. The markets were good. We could go anywhere we wanted to anytime. And just a little over 30 days ago, or right at 30 days ago, on March 16th, that whole program has changed. We're in it, and we need to continue to do everything that we possibly can as a team. You know, you heard me say as a mayor, as far as the city of Lamar's, that there's three things that's been pretty good for us in regard to the city of Lamar's, and it's called the 3P program. It's private, public partnerships. And if anything at all, we want to follow that regime. We've got an opportunity to do it right now. Now, I also want to point out that since this has come in place, that I'm very, very proud, and I got to be honest with you, of what Lamar's is doing overall. They are following the rules. They're following the 6 feet. They're following the 10 people rules and the things that I pointed out earlier. And believe me, we want to thank you for doing that, because it's a very important area of getting this through this tremendous time. And I also want to thank the first responders, and I've seen them working, the doctors and the nurses. This morning I had an opportunity to visit with Dustin Wright, our hospital administrator out here, and he informed me that things were going along very, very well, and that out here at the hospital, and that things are working, and they're taking it a day at a time, but your hospital's in good shape. I also want to share one other thing with you, and I got to thinking about this last night, and that is, you know, the government, President Trump, has taken a look at small businesses and how they've been hurt, and the programs they put together as far as what's available to them in their programs, and going through the FEMA program to get it out here at Lamar's, Iowa. And so this morning I had an opportunity to visit with our bankers just to see where that was at. And every banker I talked to, it is really working, because first of all, my concern was, in some of the small businesses, that they knew who to go to or help them with their applications. And I was informed by all the bankers that the small business people have been coming in and they are helping them with their applications, and the program is working. So it is out here in Lamar's as of right now. I just want to share that with you, so if you got any questions, why, please contact your bankers. And every one of them told me that they are definitely working overtime this last weekend, simply for what they're doing. At this time, I'm going to ask somebody to approve the agenda. Oh, excuse me.
Roll call.
At this time, would you give us a roll call, Bev?
Nelson,
Ken Nelson's here.
Knapp,
Knapp's here.
Donlin,
Donlin is here.
Goodchild,
Good job there.
Wick,
And Wick is here.
Thank
I
you.
want to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Please be,
Good job, second.
was that Ken Nelson making the motion?
Yes, it is, excuse me.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Good job, second.
The motion's been seconded and made. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, we're gonna move into the regular council meeting at this time. And, as you people know, watching over television, this is an open meeting. And, I believe the conference call number is on the screen, last I heard. And, so, if anybody, has any call-ins or questions, why, we're gonna do that, we're gonna be able to handle them. I wanna talk about, I'm gonna visit a minute here on our open discussion at this time. We have no idea how many call-ins there may be, but, we're gonna ask you to limit your concerns or your compliments to 2 minutes, if you would, please. So at this time, the other thing we're gonna do is we're gonna ask you to state your name and your address, as we always do in our open discussions. But state your name and your address before you register your concerns or your compliments. And as always, the council members can't make any decisions on it at this time, but they're always willing to listen and they're willing to look at what your concerns are. So at this time, I'm going to open the general discussion. Is there any callers that would like to come on at this time? I'm going to ask once again if there's anyone that has any concerns or questions. You're certainly welcome to bring them up at this time, but please state your name and address first. Hearing none, I'm going to move on to the council members. Thumbs up award. Steve?
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Okay. Ken Nelson?
Ken Nelson would like to comment that Governor's done a wonderful job, and I think she's spot on. It's nice to see somebody so effective.
Okay. Rex Knapp?
Rex doesn't have anything at this time.
Clark Goodchild?
Yeah, I've got one thing. I echo what Ken Nelson said there. I think whether you like or dislike the political affiliation of our governor, Richard Nixon once said, "Do not ever criticize a man whose shoes you've never walked in." She's under an extreme amount of pressure, and I think she's doing a fabulous job. With that, I do have a thumbs up. I've told a lot of people, look for silver linings in this situation. The city of Lamars, a year ago, decided to revamp a couple of the parks. What a phenomenal year we've picked to rebuild a couple parks. They can't be used anyway, so I think it should allow contractors to come in and do a phenomenal job, and thumbs up to us for just get this one right. There you go.
Thank you, Clark, for your comments, and I certainly thinking the same way, so we are moving ahead. Mike Donlin?
I'll pass this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, going to the consent items. All items listed under the consent agenda will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on those items unless a request is made prior to the time of the council votes on the motion. This morning, or today, we have 5 of them. The first one is the approval of the March 17th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. Number 2 is a list of bills for period ending 3/31/20. Number 3 is Lamar's Employee Handbook and Policy Manual Amendment. Number 4 is a mutual aid and assistance agreement for the Iowa Water and Wastewater Agency. And number 5 is the Consumers Confidence Report, CCR, Lamar's Water Department. Does any council members want to pull any of these before we vote? If there
Ken
is,
Nelson make a motion to
just a minute, Ken, before you,
approve items 1 through 5.
just a minute, Ken, before you do that. I do want to ask Rich Sattel, Rich, you're on the phone, right? I want you to share with the council members and the public on the mutual aid assistance agreement for the Iowa Water and Wastewater Agency, if you would, please.
Yeah, it's called iWarn. They're all over the United States, but Iowa started, I do believe it was like in 2007 or 8 or something. There's 83 cities and rural waters that are on board with it. I just talked with the head of Iowa's division today to ask him how often it gets used. Basically, I'll explain what it is first, I guess. What it does is if you have a natural disaster or something go wrong in your town with your water or wastewater, you can make a phone call and it will send out an email to all of the other participating cities and rural waters, and if they have something that they can help with, they have the option to help or to decide not to. But it's just mutual aid, basically. But in talking with the head of it in Iowa, asked him how often it gets used in Iowa, and he said it doesn't get used very often, but it is something good. I mean, we have helped Sioux Center